a Gunther Pauli y a Marianne en el espacio anterior. Y ahora tenemos una sesión extraordinaria. Continuamos con la agenda. Pasamos al espacio presentado por Transportadora de Gas del Perú, TGP, donde profundizaremos sobre la conservación de ecosistemas naturales y el uso de inteligencia artificial. En este espacio se analizará la importancia de la biodiversidad amazónica para el planeta y se presentará una muy valiosa e innovadora herramienta para que empresas y organizaciones aborden eficientemente los desafíos de conservación que enfrentan. Moderando la discusión nos acompañará Tania Silva, gerenta de Sostenibilidad y Comunicación Corporativa de Transportadora de Gas del Perú, TGP, y como invitados contaremos con la valiosa participación de Thomas Lovejoy, presidente del Centro de Biodiversidad del Amazonas y miembro principal de la Fundación de las Naciones Unidas. También estará Alma Cárdenas, directora global de AI for Earth de Microsoft. Esta sesión se realizará en inglés. Para disfrutar de este espacio en español dentro de la plataforma, pueden activar la opción idioma traducido. Y en el LinkedIn nos aseguraremos de compartir los links en las sesiones tanto en inglés como en español más tarde. Sin más preámbulo, Tania, vamos contigo.
Buenos días a todos. A nombre de Transportadora de Gas del Perú, TGP, me complace presentar esta mañana, en el día dedicado al planeta, a dos profesionales increíbles, apasionados de la investigación y la conservación de los ecosistemas y la biodiversidad, quienes además han tenido experiencias muy interesantes en nuestra selva amazónica, que es un hotspot de la biodiversidad. Ellos son Thomas Lovejoy, conocido también en el mundo científico como el padrino de la biodiversidad, y por ser quien acuñó el término diversidad biológica. Thomas es profesor universitario en el Departamento de Ciencias y Políticas Ambientales de la Universidad George Mason en Virginia y miembro principal de la Fundación de las Naciones Unidas con sede en Washington. Cuenta con una licenciatura en Ciencias y un doctorado en Biología de la Universidad de Yale y ha sido galardonado con numerosos premios a su trayectoria y aportes por el cuidado de la biodiversidad. Nos acompañará también esta mañana Alma Cárdenas. Alma es miembro fundador y gerente senior de la Iniciativa de Inteligencia Artificial para la Tierra de Microsoft. Este programa se centra en la construcción de una computadora planetaria para proporcionar datos geoespaciales abiertos a escala planetaria y herramientas analíticas para mejorar la forma en que monitoreamos, modelamos y administramos los sistemas naturales de la Tierra. Esta sesión será en inglés, con traducción simultánea. Pueden hacernos llegar sus preguntas en español a través de la plataforma de Perú Sostenible. Hello, Thomas. Good morning from Peru. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. We are ready to listen to your presentation now.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So I've always been fascinated by biological diversity. I just need to get back where I was. 1 second. There we are. And with the Amazon, which I first set foot in 1965, so more than half a century ago. And when I got to the Smithsonian, one of the first people I met was Francisco Dahlmeier, who shares that passion and that interest. But I had little capacity at that point to anticipate that some years later, in the 1990s, a high official from Shell Oil would come to see me at the Smithsonian headquarters about Shell's interests in drilling for oil and gas in the Camisea region of Peru. And they turned out to really be listening in the conversation, try and figure out how you might be actually able to do this without having a huge impact. And there I had Francisco and Smithsonian colleagues already at work in Manu, which incidentally I had visited in 1975. And they seemed so willing to listen to how one might be able to do it in a special, new, sustainable way. We decided to work together, myself, Francisco, and Shell Oil. It wasn't necessarily easy to get the blessing within the Smithsonian. That they probably thought I had lost my mind of working with an oil company in the rainforest. But in due time, we got the blessing. And then the adventure and the example, which is Camisea, we're now on slide 2, began to develop. And it was one thing to just try and go in and try and make as little disturbance as possible. It was another thing to simultaneously to try and understand the biological diversity in the region where they were working. And as a consequence, as all of that knowledge about the biological diversity unrolled, the leadership in Shell Exploration Peru developed a novel and amazing new plan that would enable us to actually do that exploration. And if there was success in finding reserves of gas or oil, to actually figure out a way to extract it with minimal impact. Next slide, please. So this is Francisco and his team exploring the biodiversity of the Camisea region. It was a major effort. It was very helpful to Peru in developing its own sense of the biological resources in that part of their country. But then came the challenge of, let's call it beyond biology. So how might one actually go about doing this exploration and doing it in a way which would have unprecedented minimal impact? And that's where the concept of the offshore inland model was developed, essentially operating in the Peruvian Amazon as if it was some offshore oil drilling and extraction exercise, where basically everything had to be brought to the drilling site by boat or by air, and then returned, leaving in the end no marks behind. And this is what was actually done in the Camisea. I got the fascinating opportunity to go visit it firsthand, and basically we visited the wellheads by helicopter. There was no other way to get to where they were doing this exploration. And you had to have a list of shots that was almost as long as the arm that they were injecting all the vaccinations into. And there are other very strict rules about how the oil camp, gas camp exploration people were actually allowed to behave. And in the end, that's how they were able to identify the gas deposits. And I remember going back some years later and flying over the region. Let's go to slide number 4. And seeing those same wellheads, now just little pinpricks in the jungle, connected by buried pipelines, reforested on top of the pipelines. So this was just little pinpricks in the jungle, was all the impact in the end of that exploration. And the removal of the resources was by a buried pipeline, properly reforested above, with lots of sensors in the pipeline. So if a problem arose, it would be possible to go down by helicopter and find out exactly what the problem was and to fix it. No need to build a whole bunch of roads. No roads, in fact, at all. And then there was the challenge of the gas plant at Malvinas. This was the first major gas plant on the Pacific coast of South America. And to get the gas from Camisea in the lowlands of the Amazon and up over the Andes and finally to the coast and down to the gas plant was a major construction plot in itself. But it was also done in an extraordinary way in which the biology along the way was paid deep attention to. The procedures of essentially burying the pipeline was done so carefully that sometimes the agriculture in the region was better after the pipeline was put in. And a great deal of attention was paid to the socioeconomic conditions of the communities immediately adjacent to the pipeline. So you can see in slide 5 the whole exercise of burying, an amazing issue technically and more. So all the gas was concentrated in Malvinas, and then from there went in the huge pipeline up and over the Andes. So this was the origin of the offshore inland model of resource extraction, which has been imitated in at least a couple places since, but basically should be the policy for how such extraction is done. I mean, yes, we're now questioning very seriously how much more fossil fuels we can actually afford to release into the atmosphere through combustion. But we're not going to get to that to the point of stopping immediately. So here you can see the pipeline under construction. I don't think we got a great shot of looking down from a aircraft in the region to see what it looked like afterwards, basically with no roads at all. But in the meantime, there was also incredible knowledge being developed about the biology of the region of Camisea. And last slide, please. I personally believe that the Camisea model is more than exemplary of how a thoughtful approach to what could have been a very environmentally messy extraction process could actually be achieved. That required a lot of collaboration, both from the fossil fuel companies themselves, who are the ultimate market and were paying for most of this, but also for local communities who had never experienced anything like this. And I remember visiting some of those communities afterwards up in the Andes and seeing how they had benefited in important ways, like finally being able to have running water for the first time in their entire history. So I believe that Camisea is the model that all countries should be actually following this kind of approach. It's the kind of approach that one would really expect in a Peru sostenible. And I would, first of all, applaud our for-profit colleagues, Peru LNG and Hunt Oil, but also the Smithsonian for being willing to engage in biological survey in an unknown region to try and make sure that this part of Peru sostenible was actually sostenible. So my congratulations to all involved, including Francisco Dahlmeier and all his colleagues in Peru. Thank you very much.
Very much for your inspiring presentation, Tom. I will go back to you with some questions.
Sure.
Good morning, Alma. I'm sure that your presentation will help us discover the possibilities that you offer to protect sensible ecosystems. Welcome, Alma.
Unmute myself first. Good morning, Peru. It is really an honor for me to be here and especially to be sharing the floor with Dr. Lovejoy. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's truly an honor to be able to tell you a little bit about what Microsoft is doing. So let me just start by reminding ourselves, that nature services are essential to the survival of humans. Everything that we wear, every cloth, every house, everything that we own comes from nature. Actually, our global economy is founded on taking raw materials from nature and transforming them to provide us with products and services we depend on today. But we often forget that it is nature that cleans the water we drink, the air we breathe. It takes carbon out of the atmosphere. It provides us with food and medicine. And as Tom highlighted, it provides us with energy in whatever form it comes. And yet, nature and humans are at odds. The recent report, the Global Assessment on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, published by the scientific body IPBES, it's telling us that biodiversity is declining at an alarming rate. Just as an example, pollinators provide us with 75% of the crops that we use to eat. So no bees, no food for humans. species are disappearing at an alarming rate. Wetlands. We have transformed terrestrial landscapes by more than 75%. These numbers are, incredibly alarming. And if you have never heard of this, I think that all of us should be alarmed and call to action. The United Nations has the Convention on Biodiversity has put up some targets. By 2030, we should stop all net loss of ecosystems. And even more so, we need to start restoring ecosystems. We need to bring 20% back of the ecosystems by 2050 if we want to avoid a biodiversity collapse. And what does that mean to businesses? Why is somebody from Microsoft talking about, ecosystems? We are now at a new business imperative. All businesses are facing tremendous risk. If our products depend on nature, our business profitability depends on nature, we need to understand what is the risk of losing these ecosystems to our business, right? Microsoft, in order to have a thriving business, we need a thriving planet and a thriving, humanity in this planet. We need to understand what the risk to our business is. We need to, more importantly, take accountability of our footprint. And a perfect example is what Tom just described. And hopefully, we need to start thinking how we have to transform our economy to take into account the value of nature. We really need to transform our business models to sustainable production and consumption. So this is top of mind, or should be top of mind for any business. At Microsoft, part of our sustainability commitments beyond carbon is also looking at our footprint and our impact on ecosystems. We build data centers, we build computers to bring that power of the cloud. We take energy, we take water to have those large, vast data centers up and running to provide our cloud services. So we really think that we have an important role to play in understanding what is our footprint. On our ecosystems commitments, we have committed to build a planetary computer. And this is bringing our expertise, what we have to offer, which is computer science, data science, the power of the cloud, to build this planetary computer that will make the job of understanding the impact to ecosystems much easier to do. I think, if we could help the likes of Dr. Lovejoy to accelerate their work to gain more understanding of the impact to ecosystems, I think that is a good use to have our technology help. And also, we are taking accountability of our land use. Microsoft operates around 12,000 acres of land, and we are committing to protect more land than we use. Part of our sustainability commitments was born from our initiative, AI for Earth, which was launched in 2018. And the idea is to bring that intersection of science and computer science and environmental science to change the way we understand natural Earth systems, biodiversity. We know a lot of things about, for example, our finances, our product choices. We get reviews about what is the best product. We have things that tell us how many steps we take, how many calories we burn, but really, how much do we know about biology, about nature? We really need to change that. It is said that we cannot manage what we do not understand, and we do not understand that we cannot measure. So we want to change that. And I think that, with the innovation of cloud and machine learning technologies, we really have an opportunity to bring that technology to work in the way we manage our Earth systems. As I mentioned, AI for Earth works at the intersection, strong collaborations with environmental scientists, folks like Dr. Lovejoy that have the know-how, and computer science, folks that know, deep learning and machine learning, and those collaborations really can change the way that we understand our nature systems. The program bases on our, 3 pillars. We worry about democratizing the access to technology, so we have a grants program, and the grantees always receive education on how to use the technology. We focus on innovation. We are building the planetary computer where we want to bring the best of machine learning, deep learning algorithms that can help the job of scientists a lot easier. And we provide, of course, the vast resource of cloud compute that comes with it. And bringing forward, environmental data sets, the data sets that are needed to do the science. And last but not least, we are also looking at ways in which we can accelerate our impact, right? What decisions can we do today based on existing science and existing knowledge? How can we transform the way we make decisions by data-driven informed decisions when it comes to, nature and ecosystems? Our progress today, our grants program has provided access to more than 150 projects with impact in more than 110 countries. We just released the planetary computer this past April, and we are continuing to provide, additional features, additional environmental sets on a 3-4 month basis. Anyone interested, please check the planetarycomputer.microsoft.com. And when I was preparing for this, I wanted to take a shot to go out and find on our data sets, a couple of Earth observations. It is incredible since the advent of satellites and very sophisticated sensors that are mounted on these satellites. We have been taking photographs of Earth for some time. So these photographs have enabled us to see the dramatic change that we are having on Earth. It's opening the door for our understanding that, yeah, humans have a role. We are transforming Earth and we need to do something about it. And, I just wanted to show you how beautiful Lima, Peru looks from above. Nevado Salcantay. I left my soul in Nevado Salcantay a few years ago. I went hiking over there. And you can also see the Peruvian Amazon. Dr. Lovejoy, I don't know if this is the same area where this park is. I am curious now, but there is so much information that we can gain from this. But the analytics behind it, manipulating these big data sets, right, with geospatial information, historical information, we can go back in the future and we can use machine learning, most importantly, to help us see what is coming. We can create applications that can automate classification, right? They can count trees. They can tell us how many trees and what is the species of trees, right? They can tell us, yeah, the deforestation of the Amazon is going to continue and these are the hot spots. They can help us, for example, if you have a conservation project, you can look back and look in the past and look back in the future and say, our conservation plan worked, or maybe it did not work that much. Or, we can, understand, how to best plan conservation projects. Conservation people need to make decisions about conservation projects, and do they have the data, or does it require 5 years to do environmental surveys to gain the information and knowledge? Is there a way in which the technology can help accelerate that? And we think there is. The planetary computer has a data catalog with open source data sets free of charge, available for any scientist that needs them. We are trying to make access to this data easy by, investing in robust data cataloging. We have APIs to do geographical searches, right? I want to see what happened in Lima, Peru in 2012, and how does it look today? There is, of course, a lot of computational needs on this very hungry algorithm. So you need things like distributed compute in the cloud that can help run those algorithms. And none of this matter until we get to the applications. What are the actual applications that we are building so that we can have that impact? And here are some of the few examples that we are working on with our partners. With Development Seed, for example, we are working on a land use and land cover assessment where you can look through the map and quantitatively assess how many trees are here, or how many buildings are here, or what are roads. We have conservation science partners that have done a lot of studies about human modification and the evolution of it. In this map, you can see the bright orange areas where modification is the highest. And environmental surveys, how can we accelerate that? We have camera traps installed in conservation areas that are taking photographs, 24 hours a day. The number of photographs that scientists need to sift through to find out what is in those photographs is incredible. We don't want to waste researcher time on sifting through cameras. We can automate that. The photographs can be, ingested by an algorithm in artificial intelligence that classifies them, detects objects, and even, says, hey, this is a moose. So that first step, it's automated so scientists can spend more time in the science. Water. There's going to be areas that are going to be flooded, and there's going to be areas that there's going to be drought. There's not enough water in some places, and there will be much water in other places. So we need to be able to forecast that. An incredible application that was actually just released last week that I am so excited to be able to share with you today is this Amazon deforestation prediction application. This was done in partnership with the customer Vale and the NGO Amazon. Amazon has the experience and know-how. And the previous image that I showed you before on the border, it is now here shown in this Amazon deforestation. So you can see the brown swaths are private lands, and the yellows are indigenous lands, and the pinks are emerging deforestation risk zones. We think that governments and entities can use this to address the deforestation of this important biome. We partner with academic institutions, with signature projects with our customers like Amazon to try to accelerate the impact. iNaturalist, please download this application, iNaturalist.org on your phone. Take photos of animals and the algorithm behind classifies plants and animals with the species. More importantly, this database is a global database of biodiversity used by researchers. So that is something all of us can use. And for Peru, perhaps I just wanted to mention OceanMind, who is tracking vessels and patterns of movement at seas to be able to detect illegal fishing. Finally, we're trying to scale ecological insights with technology. It is going to take strong collaboration. We want to have contributors and consumers and form this vibrating ecosystem that is looking at how we can protect our ecosystems. This is a big challenge ahead of us. We need all hands on deck. I think that we need to work towards sustainable business models, and do everything we got from civil entities, government, private sector. With a big challenge comes a big opportunity. We truly believe that there's an opportunity to reshape our economy. There will be new markets that are formed that I think for those that are ahead of the game, they will be able to stay in this vibrant market. But it will be challenging and it will require the work of all of us. Muchísimas gracias.
Thanks, Alma, for showing us all the possibilities that AI brings. Now, I want to share with you and Tom some questions for the audience. I have a first question to Thomas. Now we're facing major global environmental challenges, such as climate change and global warming. And locally, we face challenges such as deforestation and the increase of endangered species. Why is it important for a developing country like Peru to address these natural conservation issues? And how do you think this is important for Peruvian citizens, the region, and the world?
So I think we tend to generally, wherever we live in the world, undervalue natural living resources. Nobody ever looks at it as the gigantic living library that it is, with each line of evolution being a line of something like 3.7 billion years, in which the organisms in that line have been experimenting on a daily basis with new solutions for biological challenges in its existence. And sometimes by accident, more often than not, somebody figures out something interesting is going on. Like the British medical scientist Edward Jenner, a couple hundred years ago, who noticed even before viruses were known to exist, that milkmaids, you know, the women who took care of milking the cattle, did not get smallpox. They got cowpox. And he did a very gutsy experiment, which showed that if you expose somebody to cowpox and then expose them to smallpox, they did not get sick with smallpox. So that is the whole origin of the concept of vaccination, which literally billions of people have benefited over the years, whether it be at the moment for COVID or any of the other things that we take vaccinations for. So a lot of that history is not known to most people. The name of the virus that actually causes cowpox was given to it before they even knew it was a virus. It's called vaccinia, and that comes from the Latin for cow. So vaccinia, cow, vaccination, that's just from one observation of biology and nature. And I think as we are actually faced with the challenge of designing a much more sustainable future, all that biodiversity as a living library for the life sciences will be indispensable. And why the kinds of things we were hearing that Microsoft has engaged in is so important. We need a lot of new technology to protect that biological diversity because it is, in fact, a working, living library for the life sciences and for sustainability. And, you know, it's one thing to have a small number of people on the planet and have relatively minor impacts. It's something else to have 8 billion people. That's 3 times more than when I was born. And all those people deserve an adequate quality of life. You know, they have to be fed properly. We have to do all of that and protect the biological riches of our planet. So that's a big challenge, but I don't believe it's impossible at all. And particularly because of discoveries that will come from studying that living library.
Thanks, Thomas. Now I have a question to Alma. The problems are identified, and Thomas has commented on the relevance of addressing them. The question is, how can we manage this issue in a scalable and efficient way to really increase the impact of potential solutions to these environmental challenges?
Yes, I think that it is all hands on deck. We need every entity to do its piece, right? We need governments to make sure that there is the right policies in place. We need civil society to make sure they understand that every product they buy comes from nature and what its impact may be. We need private sector companies like us. All of these private sector companies hopefully will be under tremendous pressure to deliver sustainable products, right? We as consumers are going to be asking for those. So we need all hands on deck, and we need every business to bring the best they have to offer. Like Microsoft has, our best to offer is technology. How can I put technology to work for a sustainable production and consumption future? And if every business could do that, if every government, civil entities can do that, working together with strong collaboration, I think we can accelerate the impact.
Thanks, Alma. Thomas, from your perspective, can the private sector contribute to ecosystem conservation? Why is this relevant?
So when you stop and look at the numbers, you know, 70% of the economic activity that occurs on this planet is private sector. If they're not engaged in finding solutions, then we can't succeed in the end. And as Alma well knows, and the examples from Microsoft clearly demonstrate, this is not charity. This is actually designing a better future for humans and all other forms of life. We're in this together, and so it's not a question of how can I, as a CEO, not promote bad things. It's a question, how can we promote really progressive approaches to economic development that protects our natural resources and the glories of the biological diversity of this planet?
Thanks, Thomas. Now I have a question to Alma. From AI for Earth experience, could you share some examples of how private organizations are using AI to increase their impact in the solution related to biodiversity, deforestation, and sustainable water use? Is there any experience in Peru?
There is. I could be speaking to you for hours. I am very passionate and speaking about all of these examples, so I will try to be brief. There is one perhaps simple, but one good project, right? That says, well, we have the technology to do this. We partner with the government of Egypt. Egypt, they need to decide how to allocate water. Should water be diverted for agriculture, or should water be diverted for citizens to use and drink? So those are very tough decisions, right? So we help them provide a solution that using, imagery can detect agricultural boundaries, for example. Now we can estimate, depending on the type of crop being grown, exactly how much water it's needed for agriculture. Before that time, it was just a guess, and the government depended on in-person surveys. So we need to be careful on how we use and allocate water. Governments need to make those decisions. We are also working with conservation areas in Africa, for example, to leverage these imageries to, for example, trace the movements of rhinos, right? Know where they are, where they go, of course, with the aim of preventing poaching. And in Peru, our carbon RFP released just a few months ago awarded some money to work on a couple of projects. One is with Rabobank in Peru that is promoting agroforestry. Instead of just plant monocrop fields, right? We need to start incorporating forestry in it to promote biodiversity. And there is another project with Climate Oxford initiative for, I just forget the name in Spanish. I apologize. If I remember, I will let you know. But I could be giving you examples for a long time. And it's amazing when all of these entities, our customers, our subsidiaries where we operate, AI for Earth, what can we do together to improve things? And we leave behind a solution that somebody is making different decisions because they have data that can inform those decisions. So.
Bueno, una vez más, muchísimas gracias a Alma y a Tomás por este enriquecedor espacio. Sus presentaciones nos han demostrado que hay mucho trabajo por hacer en nuestro camino para preservar la biodiversidad. Afortunadamente, tenemos grandes aliados en este espacio que estoy segura se han motivado con esta conversación. Y a toda nuestra audiencia, muchísimas gracias por su participación. Hemos visto un gran número de personas conectadas, comentando y generando preguntas. Este interés, las brechas y las nuevas oportunidades que aquí se han explorado nos motivan a reafirmar el compromiso de TGP con la preservación de nuestra biodiversidad. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Tania, muchas gracias a Transportadora del Gas del Perú, a TGP. La verdad que hemos visto en este espacio lo que es hacer un proyecto sostenible, lo que es construir una organización sostenible. El ejemplo de TGP, el gas de Camisea, es un ejemplo local e internacional que debe ser imitado por todas las empresas, no solamente empresas internacionales, sino también empresas locales que están en el mismo rubro. Fantástico entonces la presentación. Me quedo con una pregunta que le hace Tania a Tomás y le pregunta cuál debe ser el rol del sector privado y si tiene el sector privado un rol en preservar la biodiversidad. Y Tomás contesta diciendo que pues, el 70% de la inversión en el mundo la hace el sector privado. En Perú sabemos que ese número es más alto, es entre 75 y 80%. Y entonces, si es que la inversión privada no incorpora los cuidados de la biodiversidad, pues no vamos a poder avanzar. Y luego ver que hay herramientas y que una empresa como Microsoft tiene un equipo dedicado de inteligencia artificial dedicado a la sostenibilidad, pues también debe ser un ejemplo y digno de imitar por el resto de las empresas. Gracias de nuevo, Tomás, Tania y Alma, y especiales agradecimiento a TGP por este espacio que la verdad nos ha abierto la mente en este reto tan importante. Muy bien, seguimos avanzando entonces. Luego de el siguiente break de 15 minutos abordaremos de forma más específica el ODS 14, vida submarina, y el ODS 15, vida en ecosistemas terrestres, a través de paneles de discusión y entrevistas que incluyen la participación de organizaciones como IMARPE, TASA y Austral, jugadores muy importantes en la pesca en el Perú, e invitados como Kerstin Forsberg, una de las seis ganadoras del premio Whitley 2018, y Teófilo Torres, ganador del premio Bruno Schubert 2021. Recuerden entonces compartir su experiencia en las redes sociales con los hashtags Evento Perú Sostenible 2021 y Perú Sostenible 2021. Los estamos leyendo, nos vemos en breves minutos. Muchas gracias.